Oh, good evening. You might be wondering what I'm doing with a very large kitchen knife. A butcher's knife, in fact, and a scale model of the house from the movie Psycho. For those of you who remember, sat ominously overlooking the Bates Motel. Well, when I plunge this instrument of carnage into the top of the Bates mansion, what can only be described as a pressurized force will plume from the incision, a scarlet-colored liquid, into my visage, rendering a look of surprise to me and of a guttural moment of delight and suspense to you, the audience. It just so happens that I remember being very young when I saw my first Alfred Hitchcock film, probably around 10 or 11. I was immediately captivated for reasons I didn't understand until much later in my life. Indeed, the movie was Psycho, being replayed on some cable TV channel. The black and white, the camera movements, the visuals, I suppose I was an old soul. No kid I knew in the 90s knew of Hitchcock, let alone wanted to spend time watching something old like that. But it truly altered my perspective on what the screen could not tell me, but show me. And from that moment on, I knew I wanted to do something like that when I got older. And that's kind of the tragedy. Alfred Hitchcock, the man who redefined what cinema could feel like, is now just a trivia answer for most people. Forgotten, outpaced, buried under superhero franchises and an endless scroll of content. But here's the thing. His work still matters. Because Hitchcock didn't just make movies, he shaped a language. One that could speak without words, move without noise, and reach right into your gut. And if we lose that, we're not just losing a filmmaker. We're losing a way of seeing, a way of feeling. So this isn't just about film history. It's about rediscovering something we didn't even know we'd lost. My goal is to make Hitchcock accessible to modern viewers. And saying that, tonight, I'd like to dive into the cinematic expression of Alfred Hitchcock. Under the framework of Hitchcock's idea of pure cinema, I'd like to make a social commentary. Okay, now let's chat about some movies. Well, I guess I'll try to cut it right into that, at least. Man, it went everywhere. Hitchcock once described pure cinema as storytelling through images, not dialogue. It's about using the camera, editing, and movement to create emotions and tell a story visually.
Yes, but you have to remember that this process of frightening is done by means of a given medium. The medium of pure cinema is what I believe in. The assembly of pieces of film to create fright is the essential part of my job.
Think of Rear Window. We learn everything about Jeff, his boredom, his relationships, and his suspicions without a word of exposition. Instead, Hitchcock lets the camera do the talking. He believed that if a film could be understood without dialogue, it was achieving pure cinema. I feel like most people will think, pure cinema? Most of his movies are long talking scenes. What's pure about them? Let me show you how he did this. Even with silent cinema, there has always been talking scenes. The extent that exposition needs to be told is up to the filmmaker, really. However, there is no escaping that part of filmmaking. It just really depends on how much information you want to provide to the audience so that they understand the story. What you have to do is shoot around these talking scenes, that is, using the camera to provide the guttural sense of excitement that we see these days with kinetic camera movements. Plus, things were bigger, bulkier, and more cumbersome when it came to motivating the camera to provide purely visual elements to a scene. Technology didn't catch up to the filmmaker's point of view till about the 60s, when it became easier to make movies that required less full-on control. So the idea of providing visual information in a spectacular point of view was restricted. Here's another example. Vertigo. Hitchcock's use of color, spirals, and tracking shots immerses us in Scotty's obsession without having to say a word about it. The infamous dolly zoom shot, where the background stretches while the foreground remains static, visually shows us his vertigo rather than telling us about it. Hold up. Let's back up a second. What the hell are we talking about here? Pure cinema? Okay. Why does this actually work on us as an audience? I've tried to understand this better over the years because I get sucked into, like most people do, these kinds of moments in movies. I think a universal language is the best way to describe it. Long before we had words, we communicated with images, gestures, symbols, and visuals. Pure cinema taps into that ancient instinct. A well-placed camera angle, a perfectly timed cut, a single glance. They speak directly to our emotions. We don't have to be told what a character is feeling. We see it. We sense it. It also makes us participants. When a film shows rather than tells, it draws us in, asking us to read between the frames, to feel the tension, to fill in the blanks. The involvement makes the experience deeply personal, and it's universal. You don't need to speak a certain language to understand a look of fear or a visual metaphor. Pure cinema transcends culture. It's a form of storytelling that works on a global, emotional level. Compare it to real-life examples like the glance between two people that says everything words can't, or standing alone during a thunderstorm, feeling the tension in the air. It's like a dream, unspoken, emotional, vivid, or the quiet beauty of watching someone you love without them knowing. Moments like these live in our memory not because they were explained, but because they were felt. Pure cinema channels that same wonder and mystery. It's the music that swells before a kiss, the shadow that lingers just a beat too long, the silence before the scream. Which brings us to one of the most iconic examples of this philosophy in action.
Sit down.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Psycho. This 1960 thriller broke every rule. It was shocking, disturbing, and yet a perfect example of Hitchcock's pure cinema philosophy. The infamous shower scene. No dialogue, just 78 camera shots, fast cuts, piercing violins, and a woman's helpless scream. The terror is in the way the scene is assembled, not just in what we see, but in what we imagine we see. Hitchcock knew that cinema was most powerful when it engaged the audience's own mind to fill in the gaps. Consider the world in which Psycho was released. In 1960, America was still clinging to the ideal of suburban bliss, strict gender roles, and moral conservatism. Women like Marion Crane were expected to marry, settle down, and follow the rules. Instead, Hitchcock presents a woman who steals money, seeks independence, and pays the ultimate price. He used visuals to critique society, highlight psychological fears, and challenge audience perceptions.
Part of psychology.
It's a thing that over the years you do learn from audiences. I don't care whether it's English audiences, American, Japanese, they're all the same. They all love to enjoy fear. They wallow in terror, and they always get off giggling, like off the switchback railway. So you learn never to explode bombs, or to save it at the last minute, and relieve the audience in the end, but give them all the apprehensions.
In Sabotage.
Fast forward to today. Horror has evolved, and so have societal norms. Films now explore themes of trauma, race, gender, and class in ways Hitchcock only could hint at.
Now, sink into the floor. Wait. Sink.
Take Jordan Peele's Get Out or Nope. Like Hitchcock, Peele uses the camera to tell the story. Long, lingering shots of Chris's silent discomfort, the sunken place's slow descent into darkness, the contrast between smiles and sinister undertones. Nope is all visual, interconnecting its characters around what they can see in stunning shot, reverse shot. Their fears become ours as we see the unknown horror happening before us. Both are modern takes on pure cinema, where visuals, pacing, and editing do as much storytelling as the script. He interweaves two competing stories, often horror in nature, as they come closer to one another at the end, drawing on fear from different parallels. Or take Ari Aster's Hereditary. Much like Psycho, it plays with perspective and focus, blurring the line between reality and psychological horror. The sense of dread instilled in his movies is captured by real, deadly scenarios. Aster's use of long, still shots, where we think we see something in the shadows, is a direct descendant of Hitchcock's ability to manipulate audience perception. Although, there is something in the shadows, and it doesn't need to be a surprise, which is a huge difference than suspense. Surprise shocks us. Suspense kills us slowly. And for Quentin Tarantino, his most pure cinema film would likely be Kill Bill, Volume 1. Unlike his other dialogue-heavy films, where he makes conversation vibrant and thrilling to watch through the use of camera placement, Kill Bill is a masterclass in visual storytelling. Long sequences unfold with little to no dialogue, using movement, action, and music to convey emotion and tension. The anime sequence, the silent face-off between the bride and O-Ren in the snow, and the extended fight scene at the House of Blue Leaves all demonstrate an understanding of pure cinema through kinetic energy, pacing, and visual composition. He gets away with holding on to long shots and letting the actors figure out what's happening in real time before cutting away. He also gets away with De Palma-like shots where we follow a character with craning shots that track through the visual space for an extended period. I even have to throw Wes Anderson into the mix as an honorable mention when it comes to portraying those kinds of shots. Think of the Phoenician scheme at the beginning, the overhead shot in the bathroom. Yeah. They all have their traditions from the past. Think Touch of Evil film friends, or Notorious. Or Young and Innocent. I love these shots. They are so unique and heavy-handed, and it's purely what cinema is about.
Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your plan.
But has cinema lost touch with pure cinema? In an age of franchises, sequels, and CGI-driven spectacles, many films rely heavily on dialogue, exposition, and effects rather than visual storytelling. Modern blockbusters often tell us how to feel rather than letting the camera and editing guide our emotions. Quick cuts replace deliberate pacing, and dialogue explains what could have been shown. While there are still auteurs who embrace Hitchcock's philosophy, mainstream Hollywood often prioritizes spectacle over substance. Imagine Psycho made today. Would we get a drawn-out explanation of Norman's psyche rather than the chilling final shot of his eerie smile? Would a studio demand more backstory, more CGI-enhanced horror, and less psychological tension? The beauty of Hitchcock's work was in what wasn't said, and what was left to the imagination. Some of the best modern expressions of pure cinema aren't always found in Hollywood either. They're often found in independent films. Great.
What went we out into this wilderness to find? The kingdom of God.
With fewer commercial pressures, indie filmmakers can take more creative risks, relying on images, atmosphere, and silence to tell their stories. Movies like Rian Johnson's Brick or Robert Eggers' The Witch use color, sound, and composition in ways that evoke emotion without explaining it. They trust the audience to feel rather than be told. That creative freedom can sometimes bring us closer to the spirit of Hitchcock than today's studio blockbusters. However, their reach is often limited by distribution and exhibition, which is an entirely separate video. And if you'd like to see more on distribution and exhibition, I can make that video. Just type "get seen" in the comments. And beyond film, we must ask, has our relationship with visual storytelling changed altogether? Social media has flooded our screens with an endless stream of content. Snippets of life, rapid cuts, constant motion. The patience for slow, building tension, for visual storytelling that unfolds over time is disappearing. Algorithms favor speed over subtlety, immediacy over immersion. What does this mean for the future of cinema? If our attention spans are shaped by instant gratification, does pure cinema stand a chance? Are we losing our ability to appreciate a lingering shot, a wordless glance, the slow unraveling of suspense? I wonder if people will figure out after a technology overload that slowing down doesn't mean a loss of experience. Quite the opposite. Hitchcock taught us that the most powerful stories aren't just told, they are felt. Experienced through the eyes, the movement, the rhythm of the frame.
When you talk about putting bits of film together, and then creating in terms of what you call pure cinema, the sequence that you're going for, I can imagine that it must have been a bit of a shock to you personally when talkies came, because in a sense you're talking almost about a classical technique, aren't you?
Well, the only thing wrong with the silent picture was that mouths opened and no sound came out. Unfortunately, when talk came in, the vulgarians, the money changers of the industry, immediately commenced to cash in by photographing stage plays. So that took the whole thing away from cinema completely. It's like a lot of films one sees today. Not that I see very many, but to me they're what I call photographs of people talking. It bears no relation to the art of the cinema. And the point is that the power of cinema in its purest form is so vast because it can go over the whole world. On a given night, a film can play in Tokyo, West Berlin, London, New York, and the same audience is responding emotionally to the same things. And no other medium can do this. The theater.
Alfred Hitchcock gave us more than just scares. He changed the way stories were told. He showed that cinema isn't just words and plot. It's the movement of the camera, the rhythm of the edit, the manipulation of sound and silence. His influence is everywhere, but his lessons on pure cinema are sometimes overlooked in today's filmmaking landscape. Next time you watch a thriller, whether it's Psycho or something new, ask yourself, is it telling its story with words or with the camera? And in an era of endless scrolling, do we still have the patience to appreciate the artistry of pure cinema? If we don't, we risk losing what made cinema an art form in the first place. A language that speaks not to our ears and eyes, but to our very souls. Thank you for watching Mystery Equals History. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hitchcock and pure cinema, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit all the notification bells so you never miss a video. Share your thoughts in the comments. What are your favorite examples of pure cinema? What movies do you like? And if you want to support the channel, check out the links in the description. It helps. Truly. That's Minerva. My name is Evan, and until next time, remember, Mystery Equals History. Okay. It's gotta be it. It's gotta be it.